Due to a spate of restaurant closures that are affecting Miami and beyond, Florida is once again in the news. News organizations are quick to blame expensive rent, disasters, or inflation. However, one component of the puzzle that they never discuss it: the Canadians. Every winter for decades, around 1 million Canadian snowbirds migrated south. During the sluggish months, they kept Florida's hospitality economy afloat by purchasing homes, making hotel reservations, and investing billions in dining establishments. However, something has changed in the last 12 months. Many Canadians are selling their residences in Florida, packing up, and bidding adieu. This is when the exciting part begins. Florida is losing more than simply real estate purchases without those tourists. The very clients that hotels and restaurants depended on to stay in business are disappearing. Restaurants in once bustling tourist areas are now deserted. Rooms, closed kitchens, and even large hotel lobbies that are almost empty. However, you will hardly hear anything about this missing bunch of foreign visitors if you turn on the television in the United States. As though the media would like to continue focusing on inflation rather than acknowledge that foreign tourists may have been the cornerstone of Florida's economy. We will investigate whether Canada has just decimated Florida's restaurant business today and how the loss of the first domino in a much larger collapse might be snowbirds. Stay there because there is much more to the story than what you have been told. Additionally, before we begin, remember to subscribe and like this video so that more people may watch the true tale of Florida's collapse. Canadians have been the backbone of Florida's winter economy for many years. In order to spend months in the sunny state, almost 1 million snowbirds packed their bags, fled the cold, and traveled south each year. They did not simply arrive for the shores. They filled hotel rooms, purchased homes, and above all, poured cash into neighborhood eateries, pubs, and retail establishments. In actuality, approximately 13% of all international purchasers in 2024 were Canadians. The whole housing market in the United States, with Florida and Arizona accounting for the majority of such acquisitions. That's a huge portion of the pie. However, something has changed. In the previous 12A trend that is hardly mentioned by US media outlets has been covered by Canadian media for months. Snowbirds who sell their homes in Florida and choose not to go back. There's a financial component to this. The weakening currency raises the cost of everything from groceries to rent. It's political in part. Canadian visitors staying for more than 30 days must register under new American regulations, and cross-border tensions have left many feeling undesirable. What the headlines indicate has been verified by Florida real estate brokers. According to one agent, she typically manages about 10 listings during peak season, but this past year, she was managing over 30 at once, over from Canadians who want to sell. These guests aren't merely seasonal ones who come once a year. This is a permanent farewell for many families. The consistent flow of revenue that keeps Florida's resort industry booming also disappears with them. Even the workplace. It was impossible to overlook the flaws in Florida's restaurant business by the summer of 2025. Some of the most popular places in Miami alone permanently closed. After serving slices for over 25 years, the beloved local restaurant Andiamo Brick Oven Pizza announced it was closing. Chica, which had established a solid reputation over the course of 6 years, closed as well. And possibly the majority of most stunning of all, the famous Italian eatery Osteria di Liatro, which has been there for 40 years, eventually said farewell. Not even the famous Miami Beach mainstay Sardinia could hold on. Long-standing institutions weren't the only ones to fail. Newer eateries also had trouble. Trendy plant-based retailer Flora Plant Kitchen said that sales had dropped by over 40% from a few months earlier in spring. Insignia, another eatery that had only been operating for a year or so, declared on social media that it would be permanently closed. You might assume that these firms were just suffering from inflation, increased rent, or the seasonal slowdown brought on by hurricanes and sweltering summers, if you only paid attention to local news stories. Indeed, those pressures do exist. However, the missing tourists, particularly the Canadian snowbirds, who used to fill dining rooms when locals and domestic tourists remained away, were constantly overlooked in the reportage. You can tell something more serious is going on when a restaurant that has been there for 40 years suddenly couldn't survive another season. But why won't anyone acknowledge it? There has always been a sluggish season in Florida. Summertime brings hurricanes and intense heat, alerts, as well as fewer domestic travelers. Usually, that isn't a bad thing because foreign visitors, particularly Canadians, cover the void. Snowbirds provided restaurants with a consistent flow of patrons for decades, guaranteeing that tables were full and bills were paid even during the off-season. Receive payment. However, that buffer disappears in 2025. Dining rooms at restaurants that used to rely on Canadians and other foreign tourists are now empty. In an effort to adjust, owners are cutting back on staff, lowering dinner hours, or changing to smaller options in order to stay alive. Since the expense of operating at night exceeds the small number of potential consumers, some have even completely stopped opening at night. Simply said, domestic travel cannot replace the distinction. Rising gas prices, housing costs, and grocery bills have already put a strain on many Americans. Millions of families can no longer afford a weekend getaway to Fort Lauderdale or Miami. Additionally, those who do go frequently take shortcuts, choosing less expensive options over sit-down eateries. It has a cascading impact. Restaurants are empty when there are less tourists. Layoffs result from empty restaurants, lower incomes, and less money in circulation in the neighborhood. Hotels, stores, and even real estate are impacted by that. The missing foreign guest is at the heart of this chain of events. Florida can point the finger at inflation all at once, but the hospitality sector is left vulnerable and the cracks are just getting wider if snowbirds don't return in force. The Florida restaurant crisis is inextricably linked to the events occurring in housing. For many years, it seemed impossible to stop Florida's expanding real estate market. People moving during the epidemic and Canadian snowbirds purchasing winter properties drove builders to build new homes at record rates. Prices increased by as much as 50 to 60% in just 3 years. However, things that rise quickly also tend to fall quickly. The housing situation had changed significantly by 2025. In a single year, house values in the state dropped by over 3%, and the decline was nearer 6% in areas like Manatee County. A growing number of unsold homes that are staying on the market for 4 to 5 months rather than selling in a matter of weeks were reported by realtors. The cause of the decline in demand. Florida's inward migration has fallen by 80% since the pandemic's peak, and the departure of Canadians accounts for a significant portion of that decline. When they opt not to come back after selling their properties, the constant flow of international renters and purchases stops. But builders haven't halted down. They keep adding new products to the market, which lowers prices even further. This is more than just a housing tale. Every unsold condo or vacant townhouse in Snowbird means that one less family is spending money at the neighborhood bar, cafe, or diner. Restaurants follow along with the housing domino. Similar to 2008, the repercussions extend well beyond the real estate market. Take a look inside Florida's hotels to see just how bad the situation has gotten. An on-the-ground video from Fort Lauderdale in late August 2025 revealed that the 361-room Embassy Suites on 17th Street Causeway is nearly deserted. The lobby appeared to be empty. There were no patrons in the restaurant or bar, and the ambience was more akin to a building getting ready to close than a resort. Greeting visitors. Even during the off-season, empty lobbies and quiet restaurants are uncommon in Florida, even though August is always a slower month. These locations used to be sustained by Canadian snowbirds and foreign visitors. They would fill the bars, order food, and reserve rooms. The difference is pronounced without them. Two significant realities are revealed by this vacancy. First, domestic travel cannot fully replace foreign travel, guests Florida used to rely on. Second, the average American is too poor to take on the extra burden. With housing and grocery expenses swallowing up income, many families can't afford the cost of a Florida vacation. The most obvious example of the domino effect is found in hotels. Restaurants lose business when rooms are not sold. Waiters and bartenders lose when hotel bars are empty. Hours. Additionally, the local economy as a whole suffers when hotels themselves lay off employees. It's not just restaurants that are missing the snowbirds. Their absence has an impact on every area of the hospitality sector in Florida. There's a recurring theme in American news reports about Florida's economic difficulties. Rent is too expensive. Inflation is too high. Hurricanes are making insurance more expensive, and companies are just having trouble keeping up with overhead. While all of it is accurate, it is not the whole picture. The extent to which Florida depended on Canadian snowbirds and other foreign visitors to maintain its steady economy. The reporting appears somewhat different from the Canadian perspective. After decades of wintering in Florida, networks such as CTV have publicly featured families selling their houses. They discuss the reduced value of the Canadian dollar, new American regulations requiring visitors to register after 30 days, and a sense of alienation across the border. These are major reasons why a large number of Canadians have opted to remain at home. However, neither side is assembling the parts. Collectively, the Americans portray it as a problem related to living expenses. The Canadians portray it as a political or travel issue. However, the truth is that Florida's hospitality industry was founded on snowbirds' purchasing power, and now that the money has been spent, it is impossible to overlook the relationship given the available facts. Closed eateries, deserted hotel lobby areas, and a housing market that is as precarious as it was in 2008. However, state officials and a large portion of the media is reluctant to acknowledge Florida's reliance on foreign tourists. More dominoes will fall the longer they deny it. Hurricanes and inflation aren't the only factors contributing to Florida's restaurant downfall. The loss of the Canadians who used to sustain the state's economy is the main concern. The effect is seen in everything from deserted hotels to closed kitchens. If this analysis was useful to you, please hit like, subscribe, and share in order for more people to see the entire tale.